For you Dorward descendants, a lot of the people that are in the audience are descendants themselves of people that were here when David and Minnie were here. So hopefully you have a chance to talk with them. I'd like to open and introduce Julie Mummy Smith, who is a county extension agent here in town, and she is going to lead us in the prayer.
Please pray with me. Dear God, we are most grateful to you for blessing us with the opportunity to honor the Dorwards and Taylors on this beautiful, rainy and sunny day in West Texas. Many years ago, you brought David Dorward to Borden County, and through his marriage to Minnie Russell and their ambition, they helped to shape the community we live in today. Lord, you also blessed us with Jean and Buster Taylor, who had the vision to see the Dorward Drug Building saved and restored for future generations to visit, to enjoy, and to learn of our great history. We thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon each of us here, and we ask for your guidance and guarding hand in everyone's travels home. In your name we pray, amen. I'd like to now introduce Borden County Judge Ross Sharp.
Good afternoon. Welcome to a wet Borden County, finally. Our wish for everyone present today is to take away a small sampling of Borden County history. The purpose of this event is to dedicate the Dorward Drug Historical Marker and to recognize those families that had an integral part of this program today. Our keynote speaker will offer a glimpse of the historical significance of the Dorward family and the role they played in the formative years of Borden, the Borden County community, the church, and our county government. The preservation of the Dorward Drug Building was a vision of the late Jean Taylor and her husband Buster. They spent many hours and poured a lot of sweat into taking this building back in time. Their determination and the fruits of their labor will be seen here today. I truly believe that Jean is looking down on us today and smiling in approval. I would also like to recognize Lisa Mahler, the former Lisa Dennis. Lisa, okay, everybody knows Lisa. She is currently serving as chair of the Borden County Historical Commission and is the driving force behind the events here today. Her energy and compassion for all things historical has generated a renewed interest in the history of Borden County. Thank you, Lisa, for your tireless approach, hours of dedication to the museum and the Historical Commission. We also have several distinguished speakers here today to give us a bit of the Borden County history and other historical tidbits of the area. We hope you enjoy the events we have planned for this afternoon.
What a wonderful day. We Borden Countians, we're happy it's raining. When I was 18, I couldn't wait to leave. I grew up on a sheep ranch, and I knew excitement was out there, so 43 years later, I find myself back learning the history, finally, of all the pioneers. And of course, I always knew about the Dorwards because I started out at the Methodist Church, and my name's on the cradle roll. But I truly have come to appreciate what the pioneers faced. And that's what we're trying to create in the museum. It will be open, we'll be around till 6. So we hopefully you will take time to visit not only the Dorward Drug, the rock station, and the museum, and the courthouse. There are things in the courthouse that are significant to our history also. I'd like, first off, for all the Dorward descendants to stand up. And I'd like all the Taylor family members to stand up. The blending of the two families, dedicated to the memory of Minnie and David. I'd like to talk a little bit about how Gail came about. The year is 1876. Borden County is just one of many counties created from Bayar, or Bear, as most of us call it. The last of the Comanches have been contained on the plains by 1880. And a side note, we have a Quanah Parker arrow now, and the significance of our county is Quanah Parker's last campsite as a free Comanche was in Borden County. We're one of over 70 arrows in the Texas Plains area to commemorate not just Quanah, but the life of the free Comanche. So now we have a county free from the Comanches, and the cattlemen have this huge expanse of land awaiting them. As you're driving through the county, you see it's green. We've been through a horrible drought and are still suffering from this long, long drought. Our stock tanks are not full, but it's green and it's good. Can you imagine a county with no mesquite? All the creeks running, the Colorado River running. There are statements by cowboys saying the grass was as tall as their stirrup. What? And there are parts of the county that some of the grass, but can you imagine how lush and green? And they're going, money, money, money to be made. And we're not talking little cattle ranches. We're talking sections upon sections of land dedicated to raising cattle. Durham, which was located 10 miles southeast of Gail, is considered the original community of the county. They had the first postmaster, Anthony Blum, in 1887. He was a New Yorker who came to Borden County seeking his fortune. Cattlemen arrived to settle Durham due to the springs and Bull Creek nearby. Colorado, also known today as Colorado City, had an important rail line and cattle shipping point beginning in 1881. Durham was located on the Colorado City Fort Sumter freight and passenger line. Communities such as Teaville and Cuthbert in Mitchell, Knapp in Scurry County, Durham, Gail, Treadway, and Julia in Borden County provided rest stops for passengers and beasts of burden. The settler needed household goods, especially any new invention, to make life easier for that woman that was doing all that work. And trust me, the amount of labor that a pioneer woman did with one baby on a hip and cooking and cleaning, everything, hauling water, unbelievable strength in those females. The settler needed those goods, especially the new invention, lumber, fencing, windmill supplies, and even news from home was in demand. The community of Gail began to grow in earnest when the rail line opened in Big Spring, also in the early 1880s. Now, freight, mail, passengers were passing through in all directions. By 1891, the county was officially organized, and eventually the town of Gail was voted the county seat by a narrow margin. The bustling little community added more and more businesses. At this particular period in county's history, Gail was bigger than Lubbock. The county commissioners and county judge did not waste any time approving and selling bonds for a courthouse and building bridges. Emphasis on paying bounty for the skins of wolves, coyotes, prairie dogs, and bobcats abounded in the county commissioner court minutes. As the town and county grew, so did the need for improvement to not only the Gail School, but all of the many outlying schools in the county. At one time, there were 18 to 20 schools in this community, in the county. Now let's take a minute and imagine life in Gail around 1900. The original courthouse was a wooden two-story structure with a garden and a watermelon patch. The second floor of the courthouse was not only used as a courtroom, but served as a place to have community dances until the wee hours of the morning. The jail, built in 1896, and still standing, was built of hand-hewn stone from Gail Mountain and would be needed for those caught rustling cattle or a visiting cowboy who might have had too much to drink at one of the saloons. In the town square, you could find a room for the night at the Kincaid, or later known as the Gail Hotel, or the Welburn House, also known as the Hale Hotel or the Stokes House. Accommodations were available for your horses, mules, oxen at all the liveries in town. Saloons would have quenched many a traveler, and opening a saloon in Gail was expensive. I've looked up the equivalent of what it would cost in today's dollars, $11,000 in taxes to open the doors. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of liquor to sell. Mercantile stores, a post office, a millinery shop that served ice cream were located on the west side of the square. The north side businesses included a bathhouse, the Chandler mercantile stores, the barber shop, the doctor's office, photography tent, the newspaper office, and Lorenzo Dow was one of our first publishers, and he went on later to expand the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. We had a confectionery shop, a bank, law and land offices, and of course, the Dorward drug. Wooden sidewalks provided some protection from dust and mud. Houses dotted the landscape. The blacksmith shop would have been busy creating tools, shoeing horses, mules, and oxen. Now close your eyes and imagine the sounds. Can you hear the clanging of the blacksmith's hammer as he shapes a horseshoe or a tool on the metal anvil? Buggies arriving in town, bringing people to shop or take care of important matters at the courthouse. Of freighters popping their whips, the wagons creaking under the huge weight of their load of lumber and other assorted goods. Maybe you hear footsteps or spurs jingling on the wooden sidewalks as people took care of business for the day. The school bell ringing to begin class, or the shouts and laughter of children as they exited the classroom for the day. And can you hear that rowdy cowboy who's come to town? Think of the old Western. They come to town, they make mischief, they hit the saloon, and they hit the bathhouse. You can basically smell them coming. Now, imagine the quiet at night and the starry sky. A community of people with hopes, dreams of a better life. A community of people supporting one another. This was Gail, and this was the town that David Dorward chose to settle in, marry many, and open his business that was to last for many decades to come. Our next speaker is Dr. Ty Kreidler. He's Deputy Director of the Southwest Collection and Special Collections Library at Texas Tech. He's Executive Director of the West Texas Historical Association. He's also an adjunct professor of the Texas Tech History Department and faculty associate for the Texas Tech Center for the Southwest. He has spent nearly 25 years as an archivist and educator, and during that time he has helped locate and deposit many collections into the Southwest Collection. He has authored numerous articles and contributed to various books on Texas history, the oil and gas industry, women's history, and sports. He and his wife, Dr. Holly Humphreys, are our county's biggest cheerleaders. They support us, encourage, and they are extremely knowledgeable about our area. It is with pleasure to introduce Ty.
Greetings, y'all, all y'all. I was just thinking as I was standing at the back of the room about the legacy and the connection between Borden County and the Southwest Collection over the years, and it goes way back, way preceding me. In fact, I was not even out here in West Texas. I was off the Cap in a place called Burke Burnett in Wichita Falls going through graduate school. At the time, though, I'd heard about Gail because the little railroad history I was working on said that they were intending to extend tracks out to the booming city of Gail in order to make their fortune and tap into the great southwestern portions of the state. But the Southwest Collection and Borden County history have had a long connection to one another. And in fact, about the time I darkened the doors of the archive at Texas Tech, David Murrah, then the director, and eventually my mentor into the archives business, had arranged for, in cooperation with the Borden County Historical Society and the judges and all of the people here, to have an extensive tour of the region, of the ranches, and of the history of the region. And it was a full day of events and activities. David Murrah was absolutely right. David Murrah came from the long tradition that there is solid history here in the region and in the local arena. A great historian, but perhaps not understanding the need and the power of local grassroots history, proclaimed that the great frontier was over in 1893. Well, doggone, Borden County had just begun to fight in terms of getting its people together and its county organized and settled, and the ranches pretty much set up in this particular region. While the frontier line may have ebbed, the epic of pioneers and the frontier here in West Texas and a few other portions in the western portions of the United States had yet to occur. And within this Texas frontier, we see that true love finds a way. True love in terms of David and Minnie Dorward. It finds a way in the West Texas frontier and sets the stage for a lifetime love affair between David and Minnie Dorward. Borden County also figures into the mix and their love affair with it in the community of Gail. The only pharmacy for miles around and the only phone link to the outside world in their pharmacy, Dave and Minnie Dorward and their powerfully important drugstore became the communication and social link to the rest of the world for this region. In modern day lingo, for our younger historians here, the Dorwards were Facebook, Twitter, instant messaging, internet, cable TV, smartphone, and the telephone network all rolled into one. They were the informational hub, often the only regular human contact to many, and more importantly, purveyors of the best ice cream around, dispensers of all-day suckers to kids of all ages, young and old, makers of the best orange juleps in the state, and owners of the coldest, frostiest refuge on those hot 100-degree days in the summer where they could go out back to the ice house and get cooled down. Sunday and Bible school teachers, David taught for over 30-plus years, Minnie for 50-plus years, sometime doctors, sometimes veterinarians, full-time druggists, proponents of banking, key individuals behind the Gail Bank, ginning, the Gail Gin Company, and a telephone company, the State Plains Telephone Company, that eventually succumbed in 1918, thus paving the way for the Dorwards' crucial and important role as a communication nexus. They were community-minded in every sense of the word, and the Dorwards posted news and messages on their famed blackboard on the front of the store, and often hand-delivered important messages to friends and colleagues throughout the community. David Dorward was born in Burleson County, Texas in 1872 and arrived in Gail at the age of 19 with parents and siblings in 1891. The frontier still active in this region. He ended up cowboying to make his way in the world. Meanwhile, Minnie Russell, born in 1875 in Dallas County, and then moved west and moved in with her aunt, who lived here in Borden County. Minnie, during her life, before arriving here, had attended Texas Female College in Whitesboro, and in 1895 began teaching at Salt Springs School. It was while teaching in Borden County that she met David, and thus the seeds for romance were planted. However, in 1897, she rejoined her family back east, who had moved since to Mineral Wells. Apparently, Minnie's departure caught David's attention. He kept himself busy by going on 4 trail drives, taking cattle from the Pecos River in New Mexico Territory to Amarillo, and in one case to Kansas. David said, "I came pretty near going to the Klondike gold fields when she left town." Letters between the two eventually enticed Minnie to return to Borden County. According to one account, she couldn't resist the lure of David Dorward and West Texas any longer. Minnie's family and friends used to tell her that you just went west to get married. She gave as good as she got by saying, "Well, if that's what I went west for, I sure got the job done." They were married on May 26, 1901. Meanwhile, David had opened a drugstore a few weeks before, thus beginning a West Texas institution of neighborliness, helpfulness, community, and above all, selflessness. In August of 1953, over 50 years later, Borden County honored the Dorwards during its annual homecoming celebration that summer. As the news article from the period said, the event was supposed to honor the county's most beloved couple, who were West Texas pioneers and the friends of everybody. The celebration came during the oil boom of the 1950s, and with it came a lot of changes. Much of it was good. However, some thought that the county was losing touch with its history and pioneering legacy. County Sheriff Sid Reeder was one of those, and it was clear to him that a whole generation of pioneers, along with the Dorwards, were about to slip away. Working against time to save the historical memory before it was lost, he joined forces with Mrs. Edna Miller, whom you all know, a consummate local historian and a genealogist of considerable repute, and a few others who would find a way and a place. They would find a way and a place. What a slogan. What a good slogan, perhaps, a motto for Borden County. Finding a way and a place to store the history. Pauline and Vivian Clark would join Sheriff Reeder's vision for a way and a place, and eventually, through their combined efforts, were able to establish the Borden County Museum as a way of preserving county history and Western heritage. As a part of that effort, on August the 14th, 1966, what had been the Dorward Drugstore building was reopened as the Borden County Museum to help kick off the county's 75th anniversary celebration. On August 14th of 1966, it was reported that the new museum contained priceless antiques of early day life in the county. Moreover, the new positive spirit had already prompted the founding of the Borden County Historical Society, with Miss Edna Miller as chairman, Miss Dorothy Dennis as secretary-treasurer, and including other members of the committee were Mrs. Doris Bennett, Mrs. V.L. Clark, Mrs. Ruth Weathers, Van York, and Norman Sneed, all names quite familiar to all of you. John Ben Shepherd of Odessa was here that day giving the keynote speech, and he reminded the gathering that towns like Gail are the grassroots of our nation. Look at your early day residents here. They are not beset with worries about atomic attack. This was the 1960s, so everybody was worried about atomic attack. But here in Gail, we were worried about other things. When attack and illness and crisis occurred here in Gail, in the early days, there were no soldiers or doctors to help. Borden Countyites and Gail residents took care of themselves. By August the 10th, 1970, 6 years hence, since the museum opened in Dorward's drugstore building, the new Borden County Museum, where many of us were just at, the new Borden County Museum, dedicated in August of 1970, opened with a whole slate of activities similar to what is going on here today, including the recreation of the 1903 Ribbon War Courthouse free-for-all land rush. Some of you might have remembered that celebration, participated in it. As you well know, that Oklahoma is not the only place to have a land rush. From about 1904, 1903, 1902 rather, through 3 to 4, there were land rushes here when Texas state lands were opened up for settlement. Anyway, they recreated the tussle at the courthouse in 1903, filing on newly opened land. And dedication remarks were given by the renowned West Texas historian, founder and director of the Texas Tech University Museum and the Southwest Collection, where I work at today. William Curry Holden was here. A professional historian and anthropologist, William Curry Holden reminded everyone of the importance of West Texas history and the need to preserve it through museums and marking historic sites. William Curry Holden's message rang clear and true, as he was a son of the West Texas frontier. He was a son of pioneering stock that had settled the region around Colorado City, Sylvester, and Rotan. He and his family were in Rotan in 1907 when the first train came into town. Holden reminded everyone of the value and importance of local and regional history and citizen historians that will chronicle it, preserve it, save it for all time. And he was right, that all history is local. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today, 44 years later, we are here not only to commemorate the memory and contribution of the Dorward family and the timeless institution of a much beloved icon, the Dorward drugstore. We are also here to pay tribute to the collective rebirth, regeneration of the pioneering spirit that lives on in the museum and in each one of you. It is up to each and every one of you to care for and preserve the history of Borden County and Gail. Many thanks and special recognition should go to Lisa Mahler, Pat Porter, and other members of the Borden County Historical Commission who are here today for their continued vigilance in preserving the history of this region and ensuring that the museum would continue to live on. May each of you support their efforts and each one carry on in your heart the need and the desire to save and preserve what is best about West Texas history. A poem that was Sheriff Reeder's favorite best exemplifies David and Minnie Dorward and the Borden County persona. Not how did they die, but how did they live? Not what did they gain, but what did they give? These are the units to measure the worth of a people regardless of birth. Not what was their station, but have they a heart and how they play their God-given parts in life. Were they ever ready with a good word, cheer, to bring a smile, to banish a tear? not what was their church, nor what was their creed, but had they befriended those really in need. Not what did the sketch in the newspaper say, but how many were sorry when they passed away. Such is the measure of a person, a couple, and a people. Congratulations to the Dorward family, Borden County, and to the city of Gail. Thank you. I have the great pleasure of introducing the next speaker. Riding shotgun with her for over the last 3 years, it's been a great honor to assist the Texas Plains Trail Executive Director in many ways as she leads the charge in not only promoting tourism and interest in the West Texas region, the 52 counties, the largest of the Heritage Trail units within the state of Texas, and I think the best in many ways. Barbara Brannon has taken control of the organization and encouraged the various counties, traveled to each and every one of them as she could and can, and in fact, she just came off the road this past couple of days from a meeting in Big Spring, and Lord knows where she's been between Big Spring and here, probably 3 or 4 other counties and museums and chambers of commerce. Barbara Brannon had formerly been employed at Texas Tech University, had worked there in charge of their marketing department for the university press, and she holds a PhD, so she is well vetted in terms of her knowledge in the academic arena. But one of the things that I like best about Barbara is that she is regular people. Would you welcome Barbara Brannon, please?
Well, it is great to be here among all of you regular people. And I think Ty said next speaker. Maybe you'll be glad to know it's last speaker, I think, today. How many of you have traveled any part of the Texas Plains Trail? Raise your hand. If you came here today, you did. If you've seen those blue and white signs out there on the highway, and there are many pointing the way toward this community, then you have seen the origin of this program going back to 1968, when the state of Texas decided that one of the best ways to build up the traveler's image of the Lone Star State was to mark auto driving trails that brought people out into every corner of the state. These days, we operate under the umbrella of the Texas Historical Commission, and we serve every one of the 254 counties of Texas. So we're very glad today to be here with you to celebrate the real places that tell the real stories of Texas. Now, stories of Texas are not all grand. The places where they happened, as you've heard from Lisa and from Ty, are not all enormous or majestic or densely populated. The people who live them are not all heroes or saviors. But the themes that each one of these stories represents are windows on the past and also on our present and our future. We take something from each one of these episodes into our souls, enlarging our understanding of the world we live in, its nature, and its humanity. And we are better for it. So look around you today. Imagine these walls, not where they are. Imagine the landscape beyond this. Picture these scenes in your mind's eye. There was a time eons ago when streams wore away the layered soils of the caprock to reveal a hard-topped butte the first peoples called Mushaway, and another elevation the newcomers called Gail Mountain. There was a time when those newcomers brought surveying instruments and map-making materials, and they carved out a county called Borden. There was a time when ranchers and settlers arrived wearing those blue and red ribbons. There was a time when cotton and cattle were king, and a time when black gold was discovered under those lands. Throughout all of this immigration and conflict and change, Gail, Texas has never been a large or populous place. So the stories of those who have traveled and lived here stand out even more prominently. And they teach us a great deal about struggle and determination and compromise and love and loyalty. The stories of Quanah Parker and J.J. Strum, of Gail Borden Jr., who never visited the county and city that bear his name, of settler Mary Blankenship, who claimed this place was an excellent location to be still and know God because he was their nearest neighbor, of the builders of courthouses and the drillers of wells and the teachers of children. These stories make the land come just as alive as the stories of the Austin colonists or the Galveston merchants or the Alamo defenders. So when David Dorward came here more than 120 years ago to ranch and to contribute to the business of this community, and to marry here and raise a family, his is the story of the romance of West Texas. His preserved store is the material embodiment of that story. And those of you citizens of Gail and Borden County, those of you expatriates and expatriates who have held on to this store and this heritage are the ones that, because of your efforts, will ensure that those who come after us will appreciate those same stories. So on behalf of the Texas Plains Trail region, we are your fellow keepers and your promoters of tradition in this part of Texas. We congratulate you, and we look forward to learning more of your story. We look forward to helping bring more visitors here to see what you have preserved. And I just encourage every one of you to get out there and travel to places far and near in Texas and to experience those stories for yourself. Thank you. And now, back to Lisa.
Every one of you have a story to tell. As a genealogist, you think, oh, that's for the people that have gone on. You have a story. Please write down your stories. And especially if you have stories that deal with Borden County, please share those stories and give them to the museum for future generations to enjoy. Now, it's time. We would like for the Dorwards and the Taylors only to have a private moment to unveil the marker in front of the Dorward drug. It is Jean's day, not only Dorward Day, but it was Jean Taylor's vision to save that building, and we're so thankful. And I just came on board and said, oh, let's put a marker up. And here we are. We thank each and every one of you. We remember our pioneer spirit. We remember the Comanches that were here that enjoyed this wide open country, following the buffalo and the antelope. The museum will be open, the rock station, the courthouse, and the Dorward drug, but we have a reception with coffee, tea, water, and cookies. Please eat a cookie. We don't want to freeze any, or we'll have to have another party. So you are free to go wherever you would like to visit, but if you would please wait for a few minutes for the Dorwards and the Taylors to go unveil the marker. It is beautiful.
You ready? All right, here it is.